You are listening to the We Hired a Sitter for This podcast.
We hired a sitter for this.
We have a roster of like 7 sitters.
I'm spending $3,000 on paints.
Do you go to therapy?
Never have, nah.
There was a small fire. I put it out.
Real talk, the stakes are too high with my baby.
Comedy, parenting, married, life.
We do it all.
I'm a dad and I'm busy.
I have an opinion. I don't know if it'll be right, but
I'm Patrick.
my name is Gaston.
We hired a sitter.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 150 of We Hired a Sitter for This. Today I have my great friend Jeff Simmermon next to me. Jeff, thank you for coming.
Very, very glad to be here.
We are sitting 3 inches apart from each other. I feel your essence. I feel the heat. You came off the street just now, all the way to Bushwick.
Mm-hmm.
How are you feeling?
Honestly, man, I feel pretty good. I'm just glad to be in an air-conditioned apartment right now.
Yeah.
My lower back's a little sore, but otherwise I'll make it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I heard you were flipping tractor tires in a field today.
Yeah, I know. I'm not even Republican. I was doing a little workout in the park near my house. I was wailing on the thing with a 12-pound sledgehammer and then flipping it over. And
did you get out all of your father issues?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know about
session.
that. Yeah, signs point to the fact that I'm going to pay a price for that tomorrow.
I want to know, how important is fitness to you as a dad yourself? You've got a tiny little one at home, less than a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
How important has fitness become more important to you as a new dad?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in that, I had him kind of late in life. I'm 48. He's going to be 2 in August. So
Yeah.
I would like to attend his college graduation.
Yeah. So to do that, let's say you're 66, 67 when that happens. Or no. When do you graduate? I don't know math.
Okay. 18 plus 4, 18, 19,
All right,
21, 22-ish.
Yeah. So he'll be 22 and you'll be 70.
I don't know, dude.
Is this depressing?
I don't know if it's depressing to think about it or depressing that I can't do the math without involving my fingers.
I have judgments toward my own brother, who is our biggest fan. PJ, I love you, but I have judgments toward how you're working out, and I'm curious. He's a big guy too. You guys are built like Paul Bunyan. You require. Like if I were to swing a sledgehammer and hit a tire even 10 times, my back would be fucked for weeks. And I would hurt myself because it's like too heavy for me. Do you think ever about just like getting on an elliptical?
I've done that, man. It's boring.
Yeah.
It's real boring. I hate it. And there's always some idiot that wants to look at Fox News. And I would much rather do something that's going to be functional, and like an elliptical is going to train you. Like your body adapts so much. Look at me sounding like a personal trainer, but
no, this is good. I need to learn.
Your body adapts to exactly what you're doing and nothing else.
Right.
So if you're on an elliptical, you'll get really good at being on an elliptical.
Like a smooth, and there's no other thing in life that does that. Like bicycles aren't like that. Walking to work isn't like that. It's so smooth and effortless.
Right. So if I really like functional strength training because you're like picking up stuff in a way that you pick stuff up. So theoretically I can continue picking my squirmy toddler up.
Right.
You can lift things. So like with a kettlebell, you're doing a compound movement and you're using like your whole body, or like with a hammer, you're using your grip, your forearms, your shoulders, your core. You're bracing for the impact. You're picking it back up. So it's like a cardio thing. So it's more like a thing.
Yeah.
And also, look, dude, I just saw a TikTok video where some chick I thought was pretty was just like watching a guy chop wood. And I was like, all right.
Wood chopping videos keep coming up on my Instagram.
Yeah.
And I look in the comments and it's all women just fawning over these dudes. So
yeah, exactly. And also look, listen, man, we all COVID did some stuff to all of us. Yeah. Really reduced a lot of your activity. I shifted into late middle age metabolism.
Yep.
But it's 2020, 2021, everybody's like, oh, I gained some COVID weight. Like, dude, it's 2024. I'm just fat now.
Yeah,
so I gotta,
it's your post-COVID weight, pre-election weight, and then it'll be, the dark times weight, whatever the next horrible thing is.
Yeah. So, and also when I was, caring for my dad, people brought meals to the house like while we were doing that. And
Caring for your aging father in the South.
Yeah. My dad had a terminal disease.
Home cooked meals from the neighbors are going to be butter heavy.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody ever longed for their mother's down home kale salad, and
do they even have kale where you're from?
They have it.
Yeah,
it's an urban area.
Yeah.
But people were bringing over some monster made what they called a Mexican lasagna. They are neither Mexican nor Italian, but it was just tortillas, refried beans, cheese. It was like a 7-layer dip, but with like tortillas as noodle.
Oh, I like it.
And let me tell you something. It tasted pretty good, and it went down real great over the garbage at like 3:00 in the morning.
Oh yeah.
When I was up with my dad,
Love a standing garbage meal.
Yeah.
So I'll give the listeners a quick version. I've gotten to hear you work out a solo show you're doing about what's happening in your life and what happened in your life with your father's end of life care. You helped out a lot during your father's end of life health journey to the end. I'm being very clumsy with how I'm describing it, but
my dad died of ALS, and I was there for it.
You were there for it.
Yeah.
Like the whole,
Yeah. No, we were
quite a lot of it.
Yeah. Like he was diagnosed with ALS in June of 2020 and died in June of 2021. And that year, my wife and I spent every other month in my childhood home in Virginia in taking care of my dad and trying to give my mom a break.
And you were, from what I remember, you were kind of newlyweds at the time, right? When did you get married?
Well, we actually got married in 2022, about 6 weeks before my son was born. It was like just the timing was like weird. Like I had my own shit about like, are we not cussing? What are we doing here?
Oh, we can curse. Yeah,
okay,
go nuts.
Good.
Nobody's listening. I forgot to tell you that. I want you to do my podcast. No one will ever hear it.
No, listen. The fact that if I ever get asked to do a podcast, I assume it has no audience. So
no. Actually,
where
our
I am
audience,
in my career.
Our audience has been clamoring for you.
Okay.
I was getting text messages and emails. I was writing the texts and emails to myself to remind me, hey, get Jeff Simmermon on. He's another comic who's a dad.
Right.
He's got
Fight Club style. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So where was I going with this? Yeah. So my wife and I, I had my own issues. She's my second wife, and so. I had a lot of...
And the best one, I'll have to say. I'm a big fan of Erica.
She's great. Every comic loves Erica.
She's got a great vibe. Great. Like, always... anytime I've been on a show where she is, I assume she's stopped going to shows by now.
For the most part,
She always had an aura of pleasantness and openness to whatever's being said on stage.
Oh, yeah. And she helps. She's great. She does crowd control. Like, if somebody's heckling, she'll be in the audience and I'll be like, who is, and she'll be like back there, like pointing them out.
Yeah, you need
or
that.
She'll shush them, and then she gives me notes on my stuff.
Yeah,
she's so warm and comforting. She can crack open the Spectrum adjacent comics that are standing in the corner, and then I can
right.
get in there and converse.
Yeah. It sounds like she's a mental health professional.
Yeah.
And also to go from such an intense, because I was going to say doing the stuff you were doing for your dad as newlyweds sounds horrible for a honeymoon phase, but you weren't even newlyweds.
Oh, no.
You then got married. So she weathered what sounded like, based on your show, it sounds like you were truly in the trenches of family trauma and generational stuff. And it sounds like you had a great childhood and a great dad, but it sounded really fucking hard from what I heard.
Yeah.
So I cannot believe she was still like, now let's do this too.
Yeah, well, it was like, we were doing IVF while we were taking care of my dad. But we got engaged in the fall of 2019. And I had been like kind of stuck on proposing because I just from stuff left over from my first marriage, and because I'm a testicular cancer survivor.
You've had some stuff happen to you over the years.
Yeah, I got a couple scars, man.
And also, I just want to pause to say that it's hilarious to me that single male comics living in New York City anybody mentions I had a little bit of an issue with commitment or taking things to the next level, it's like, yeah, of course, we've chosen this Peter Pan lifestyle, this pipe dream career. Of course you were like, I don't know if I really want to do this.
Well, yeah, there was that. And there was also the fact that when my wife was leaving me in couples counseling, she was saying, what kind of an idiot goes to do stand-up comedy? And so I had a lot of toxic beliefs in my head about how successful I needed to be before I felt ready to be a dad.
Yeah.
I also knew that IVF was going to be in my future because me and Lance Armstrong ride in the same unicycle. So like, I have one plastic testicle and one other one that barely functions, as I've learned.
Is there math to it? Like, are you like basically 50% as sterile or virulent or whatever the word is? Virile? Is that the word?
Oh, I know what you mean.
Like one, if you take one out, do you just automatically have 50% less stuff?
In many cases, the other guy picks up the slack, and
they're like kidneys.
Yeah. In my case, that wasn't the case.
Right.
But we also, the other thing is that like, testicular cancer can happen to people who have something wrong with them in the first place.
Right.
So it's a little chicken or the egg. It all comes down to microplastics.
Yeah.
Like nobody knows. I had some weird tumor that just showed up.
Really?
Yeah. It wasn't like a kind that people were familiar with.
By the way, I gave you a glass of water. I don't use a Brita filter or anything, so you might be getting a full dose of new microplastics.
I've been living in New York City since 2007.
Yeah.
Okay. Like it was a choice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where were you before that? I just assumed you were always here.
No, I lived in DC for a couple of years before that.
Okay.
And then, I graduated from college and then lived in Richmond, Virginia for about 5 years.
Gotcha.
Perth, Western Australia for about 1, DC for a couple of years, and then New York since 2007.
Yeah,
so.
And your work, by the way, very much matches or mirrors the DC area punk ethos. Mm-hmm. Like you got to, if you're watching on YouTube, click another tab open and check out some of Jeff's show posters. You make some of the best printmaking bespoke show posters for your albums and your shows and all the stuff. I love your just like your style as an artist in general.
Thanks, man. Like I think I'm always trying to kind of marry the hardcore flyers I saw or made when I was in high school, and then horror movie, sci-fi movie posters, like drive-in movies, and I have so much fun doing that, and I spend hours, sometimes days on them, and if it gets 6 likes, that's a big poster.
Yeah.
So it's really nice to hear this on this tiny podcast.
No, well, I mean, for what this is my version of that poster.
Yeah.
Really, go look at the YouTube views. There's one episode. Ross and I did an episode recently where we kind of did a catch up about some of the relationship drama going on in our lives because she's had some dating trouble recently, and that one had it might have 50 views or something, and then the rest of them are literally 7 views, 4 views, and I'm like, oh yeah, people want to hear about people bitch about sex stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is my bespoke poster.
People are like, how single is she?
Yeah.
Do I have a crack?
It could be.
Yeah. How many rows of back burner are there?
Or how much of a cuck is this guy that is just putting hours and hours of random conversations on YouTube?
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that I like hearing, I like hearing all that, and I like knowing the kind of DC backstory a little bit, because I love that in comedy, when I quit my real job, because I know you come from quitting a real job to give your inner child a place to play or whatever. When I did that, I really had no plan. I just was sort of like, hey, as long as I stay sober and I really go for it with comedy, I'll be happy. It'll all work itself out. Maybe I'll just be the fun uncle for the rest of my life, and I'll just be the single bachelor guy, and that's okay. I've sort of been that in my family a little bit for a while now. And I think what I like meeting people like you is it's a reminder that you can be this punk kid who wants to just play rock shows and make cool art and perform on stage, tell stories, do comedy, whatever. But you can also settle down, have a family, be a good dad, be a responsible partner, do the whole life thing. You know, like it can be done. You can do it. It's obviously super hard. It's so hard to eke out a living doing any of this stuff. But you're just like one of those people that I'm like, I don't know. It's cool to see that you, I don't know, have this past and like you're now in this phase of your life.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, you know, I think I had absorbed a lot, like I said, I'd absorbed a lot of like toxic stuff about like that I needed to be making like a certain amount of money or have a certain amount of stability from comedy in order to be able to responsibly be a dad. And that was just not true. Maybe not even was not going to happen.
Yeah.
But, you know, there is a person that we both know who owned a club here for a while and then relocated it to a different city, who really got in my head with a lot of sort of toxic views about what being a real comic was.
Right.
And I saw them posting recently on social media saying like, if, you know, here's an opportunity, but it's only for real comics, not people with desk jobs or like whatever. And I was just like, oh, get off my nuts. Like if you can make people laugh and people want more of it, congratulations.
You're a real comic.
Yeah. And it took me 48 years to figure that out. And and also I will feel differently about it in 1 hour, but like for right now, it's just like, I don't know, you're just doing your thing. And there is a certain, I'm going to like answer all your questions you just asked, cause I want to tie it all back together here.
No, please.
One of the things that I learned hugely from my like time, just like having bands in high school and then being friends with guys that were in some, you know, moderately successful emo hardcore metal bands from the like DC, Virginia area, was like, if you're doing it, you win.
Yes.
Like you get to get up and do this thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, I quit my job because I had some of that. Like I used to be the director of digital communications for Time Warner Cable. So I managed their blog and their social media and shit like that. And I felt like I wasn't like a real little boy, you know?
Right.
Cause I was out all night, all the time, and come in and I had to wear like a suit and I sat on the same floor as the CEO and everything. And I'd have like glitter behind my ear from like hugging a burlesque performer who had done my show the night before.
Yeah.
You know, and my suit would like kind of reek. But, excuse me, you know, and I thought I'm not real, you know, but it's like, no, you're real. Like, I was a little surprised at how hard Steve Albini's death hit me, considering that I didn't know him as a person. And for those of you who are listening, he had these influential bands called Big Black in the 80s and Shellac in the 90s to now. And he was a record producer who produced most notably Nirvana's In Utero, but like a lot of your favorite indie albums from the 90s he recorded.
Yeah.
And his attitude was like, no, he could have made so much more money as a producer. And he was like, no, I want to be paid like a plumber. I want a flat rate. I want to keep it honest. I like having a recording studio. I like going to work. So he worked with all these small bands. Like my band with my best friend from kindergarten could have recorded with him.
Yeah.
If like basically if he had the time, we had the money, and he kind of liked our approach, we could have done it. He recorded everybody.
Yeah, he's like a principled guy and like one of those people that everybody quotes. And yeah.
And so his band Shellac, he was just like, okay, we're only going to tour to cities we want to go to.
Right.
We're going to put out records when we want to put out records. We're not going to try and pay our rent with this thing. And so we get to do whatever we want. And there is a freedom in like not using it to pay your rent, not using it. Then like, cause look, if I was using comedy to pay my rent as a father of a 2-year-old who's just sets his savings on fire every day, I would go, I'm white and I have a beard, so I would start making fun of Democrats. I'd be on Rogan and I'd be saving for my kid's college in 6 months.
Yeah.
But it's such a cheap out.
Well, we're going to make a right turn here and we're going to start a Patreon episode where we're going to talk about why Kamala slept her way to the top.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I'm going to get you fired up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. So yeah, that was, I will take bait, but that was beneath me. So like, I'm really trying to make my peace with the like not needing to get up every night. I don't actually do stand up that much anymore now.
Yeah.
But I do read a lot of bedtime stories, and that to me seems to be important not only for my son's health, but by preventing bad comedy from developing. But
well,
you know,
it's. I mean, I said to you earlier, I had Laurel on yesterday for you last week. I forget at 2, he's 2. You got a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
Like, it would be a little bit insane if you were out every single night right now.
Yeah.
And probably inappropriate. You know, like it's all hands on deck for those first couple years.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I feel guilty right now because I had a doctor's appointment this afternoon. So my wife took my son to the playground and out to get lunch. And then like they were on the playground when I left to come here. And I was like, am I missing? I hear the cats in the cradle in the back of my head all fucking day, you know, every day, I can hear my son sometimes like banging on my door, like boop, 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 like that and going, daddy, daddy. And then his grandmother, my mother-in-law, she's Greek. She goes, no, daddy has to work now. And it's just like cats in the cradle and the silver spoon. So I'm doing as much as I can with the resources I have. And that's going to have to be enough.
Yeah.
You know, like,
well, I mean, perhaps if you neglect him just the right amount, if you create enough scarcity of yourself, you might create another stand-up comedian.
Well, I think my nephew's really got a shot because he's really funny. He's really smart. So far, school is not really his thing, and he's got an uncle in the business and an abusive father. So
that's
he could
the
really,
recipe. If you look at the pie chart of all the ingredients for that cake, abusive dad is like the flour that will hold it all together.
That may be what's holding me back. Well, so let me answer your question just because I want to get a timeline out here.
Yeah.
Okay. Stuck in like can't propose mode with my girlfriend, you know, who was my first big time girlfriend after my divorce, you know?
Yeah.
And then we like did all this couples counseling because we were both like, let's go.
Big fan of couples therapy, by the way. Ross and I were in couples therapy 9 months into our relationship.
Wow.
Yeah. That's like a sober cliche. People in recovery, they're like, all right, we like each other a lot. Let's go to couples therapy.
Wow. Okay. That's because I have wondered, is couples therapy the duct tape that holds together a relationship that wants to fall apart?
Well, actually, we ended up breaking up in that first couples therapist we had. We broke up in couples therapy. I never got my money back. And then we got back together, and then we had a couple other couples therapists through the years. So anyway, I just jumping in to say, big fan of it. If you think you might need it, go do it. There's cheapos out there. Just be in a room where there's someone else kind of helping you have horrible conversations.
Yeah. Well, this was just like, this woman was like, I was like, let's get the tools before we need them.
Yeah.
And she helped me get like unstuck. I proposed to my wife on her birthday in 2019, September 2019.
That's beautiful.
And I was like, I've got an album recording coming up in November. So basically, here's a ring. I'll be back in November.
Yeah.
I was just
What's her birthday?
September 3rd.
Okay, my mom's the 24th. Okay. But happy birthday to Erica. It's coming up.
Yeah. So we you know, I proposed to her. She of course said yes. Yay, you know, and so I was like, okay, I'm recording this album. Just beating up the streets of New York City and like running the hour outside of New York City, because if you're not famous, you can't get an hour except for outside of New York.
Right.
And so did all that, recorded the album. Then we had an engagement party the following week. Then it's Thanksgiving. We're into the holidays. Late January, early February of 2020, we went to Argentina to see her father, who was very old and pretty sick at the time. And then all of her half siblings were in the same place for the first time ever.
Wow.
Yeah. So we went to Buenos Aires. And
was Dad just like a busy guy out there footloosing around South America?
Not just South America, Patrick.
Good for him.
He had 3 kids from 3 different women on 3 different continents in 3 different decades.
Wow.
He's dropping them off like a sea turtle.
That's amazing.
On a distant beach.
He's like De Niro or Pacino.
He was a polar explorer and mountaineer in the 60s and 70s.
Whoa. I should have him on the podcast. Is he dead?
Yes.
Oh, Ghost
he,
podcast.
You know, and there's a lot of stereotypes about Latin men in that regard that he perhaps helped develop.
Yeah.
You know, but he had like that kind of thing, and he was always like in different country, different city.
Woman.
He had a lot of he's a very good looking guy, and he literally discovered mountains, like planted flags in mountains in Chile in the 70s. So
who's her youngest half sibling?
Her half sister Anna, who is now 28 or maybe 30 now.
So was he in his 60s when he fathered his last kid? That's really
50s
impressive.
maybe. But so anyway, so we I'm sorry, man.
We go to
Argentina.
You just have so many interesting things that I want to jump in, but I don't want to sidetrack you too much.
So we're like on the plane coming back from Argentina in early February of 2020, being like, right, when we get back to New York, we're gonna plan this wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
things happened.
Yeah, things happened.
There was a hiccup.
There was
a global hiccup.
We're like watching the news on the TV, and they're like in China, and we're like, turn that shit down. We're planning a wedding.
Do you remember a video? I saw a video on YouTube from China that I think was at the end of February.
Mm-hmm.
It was a time-lapse video of a hospital being built, and they said there's a new virus out, and everyone in China is really scared of it, so they're building this hospital really fast to deal with this problem. And I remember watching it thinking, that's so crazy. Like, is this a movie? And then, it was like, it happened.
Well, Patrick, it's Chinese construction. That wasn't a time-lapse video.
There's no code.
He just built it that fast.
Yeah.
And so oh wow, watch me get yanked from SNL for that. But
actually, just we can't ever put that on TikTok. That's what it's going to be.
So no,
real quick, to your partner and you both have dead dads now. Sorry to say it so crassly, but do you believe in the afterlife? Have these two men met on a higher plane, and do they approve of what you've built for yourselves?
They do. I don't think they've met, but
and I assume they actually never did meet, right?
No. Her, Erica's father, we think he was pretty sick for a number of years before he actually passed. And my dad, we now look back at all of this weird stuff that was going on with him health-wise, and we realize, oh no, that was ALS developing.
Right.
But my dad was blind from macular degeneration. Like he was legally blind, so he could make out like shapes.
Yeah.
If he met you, he would not recognize your face, but he would recognize your voice.
Interesting. So, an ALS is a nervous system?
It's a neurological disorder, and
it
just causes the messages to your various whatever to stop making it. So, and like I said at the top of the show here, if your body adapts to exactly what it's doing, so the nerve blows out, so you can't really lift your arm like that. So the muscle withers, dies, and then that arm doesn't work anymore.
Are you having any OCD reactions in relation to fitness after witnessing what you did with your dad? Like, are you now working out in a different way where you're like, I can't put that on my kid, so I better do extra curls today?
Well, no. First of all, because I don't fuck with curls, but secondly, there's nothing that you can't insulate against it.
Right.
I mean, yes.
If it's ALS or neurological, you mean?
Right.
Like, that's just it. You're fucked.
Yeah, you're just fucked. And I mean, I guess I feel a certain amount of like, I want to be as healthy as I can for as long as I can to see him and not be like his responsibility in some way. But I mean, you can do everything right, and that one just hits you, and that's
right.
So but my dad was getting more stumbly for a couple of years, and we thought it was because his vision's degrading more, his depth perception is off,
right,
or he needed help getting up off the sofa in a way he didn't used to.
Yeah.
Oh well, he had been treated for prostate cancer. Oh, he's losing muscle mass because of a response to that medication. No, it was ALS the whole time.
Damn.
So 2020 hits. COVID.
I'm so sorry. We all did those ice buckets, and it didn't help at all.
I mean, it might have gotten somebody a fucking spit bucket somewhere. But
which is, by the way, we don't have to go down this road, but I just want to say, go see Jeff's show at Caveat. That this might be out before. Caveat. This might be out before. Anyway, go see Jeff's show whenever he's working on it, because there's a really fascinating tangent within it about the economy of healthcare and the healthcare system at large in this country, and it's so fascinating and frustrating and horrifying, but you make it so goddamn hilarious in the show that it's you know, you made the joke that maybe you could buy a bucket with that, like all those fundraiser monies, but that sounds like is what the reality is. It's
or they were like they got all that fundraising from all those ice bucket challenges, and the scientists looked up and they were like, our studies show that you're still fucked. You know, like you know, all this new research shows that you're still screwed. Yeah. So like, we spent 2020 going back and forth from New York to Virginia to like have IVF treatments up here, care for my dad, you know, and so on. And then it got to where the IVF took, you know, spoiler alert, my wife, or my then girlfriend, was pregnant. It was like 6 weeks before the baby was due to come out with a planned C-section. And we were like, oh, we should get married.
Should we do this thing?
Yeah, but I mean, nobody felt like planning a wedding with all of that and all the money we're spending on IVF. Like, you know, my first wedding was at a national park. Yeah. And it cost like 10 grand, and that was like pretty reasonable. Yeah, yeah. So I'm not, and then your second time around, you're like,
One of the best weddings I ever went to happened at City Hall in Lower Manhattan, and then we all went to an ice cream stand afterward. Oh, that's and it awesome. Was beautiful, and we love this couple so much, and people shit on the City Hall stuff, and I'm like, no, those are the smartest people I know.
You know, this is a tangent, but a comic I met, I did one show with her in Paris in like 2018. And I got a message from her last fall, and she was like, hey, I'm in New York. I am 3 months pregnant. My family doesn't know. My boyfriend and I want to get married at City Hall in New York City because she was Romanian. He's from Spain. And the bureaucracy in France to get married as expats was so insane. She was like, you're literally the only person I know here. I know her from hanging out in the green room on one show in Paris.
That's hilarious.
And I was like, hell yeah, I'll be your witness. Are you kidding me?
That's amazing.
Yeah. Our wedding, we were like, how do we do this? Jesus. We were thinking about City Hall, and then we had a baby shower coming up. And it turns out my wife's best friend, her like work best friend, she works at a church, and so her work best friend is a minister, and she just came, and we had an ambush wedding at the baby shower.
Oh, I heard about this. That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
And after all the ambush comedy shows that you've thrown in your life, it probably felt second nature.
Yeah, well, it was awesome because like, it was awesome because like we were, you know, having food and people are hanging out, you know, all this stuff, and then my wife's friend got together and said, okay, we're gonna play some baby shower games, and all my friends that were comics in the corner were like, Jesus Christ, no. And she was like, psych, it's a wedding. And then we played
that's the best.
We played the bridal march from Flash Gordon, which is done by Queen, and then walked up, ceremony, cake.
That's great.
It was great.
I've been to.
And she's like huge, you know. She's had a baby 6 weeks after that,
and it's nice. Yeah, so it's like he got to be there. That's nice.
Yeah.
I've been to so many weddings in my life, and I used to, especially in my 20s, especially when I drank. I loved weddings because they're the best parties. But they are tiring and they're expensive now. And now that I have a kid, it's like money. We have to be really careful with money. So I would love it if for the rest of my life, every wedding I ever take part in again, I don't know about. I just go to some event and then it's a surprise wedding. I would prefer that.
Yeah.
So good on you guys for really just keeping it simple for all your people.
Yeah, I think my mom and then her buddies that were planning the shower knew, and that was it.
Yeah, that's great.
I don't want to say her buddies, I mean my wife's friends, you know, and then we had it at a tiki bar on Flatbush Avenue.
Yeah.
And then we had my son's first birthday party there a year later.
Is it Zombie Hut? Is that the name of the place?
No, not the Zombie House. At a place called Fiona's.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I it sounds like you've really created it. Actually, the wedding is another example of like these really cool things that are unique to you. Like, and you're the same way with, you know, for a while you were posting interior decoration you were doing in your new place, and you're big on food. You're an amazing cook, and you post recipes and blogs about the food and how to eat it. And what I like about your recipes is you have very specific instructions on what you might pair a certain sandwich with, drink-wise, or what kind of bag of chips you might put with that sandwich. Point being, I like that you are so good at curating these things that are special to you, and it sounds like the wedding and your marriage and your family are all like bigger symbols of that.
Oh, thanks, man. I had not thought of that, but thank you. That's interesting to hear that insight. Yeah. I mean, I like, you know, mixing stuff together. I really miss my monthly show that I had at UCB East.
Oh yeah, that was a great show.
Yeah, you did it, right?
I did it once, and it was burlesque, right?
It was,
but like kind of like alternative burlesque dancers.
Yeah, it was stand-up storytelling, burlesque, sometimes sideshow, sometimes a band.
Yes, yeah, I remember there being fire involved with one of the acts.
Yeah. Who was that? Was that the woman who pierced her skin and then lit candles?
I didn't see that.
Upper boob no, okay.
I don't remember blood.
There wasn't much blood.
Well, it's funny you're bringing this up because I just did a show last night.
She got one drop of blood on the floor though at UCB, and she carried like hospital grade wipes.
Yeah.
And like somebody from UCB came up and was like, "Hey, there's blood right there. We're not comfortable mopping it up." And I was like, "Of course not. Hang on, Kendra." And then she like comes over, shows them the sterile wipes, wipes it up, everybody's fine. And then 3 months later, I got in trouble at UCB and they held that against me. And
that's
I was just
insane.
Like, you made it sound like I did a Santeria sacrifice.
Yeah, and that theater, that's the UCB theater in the East Village, where God knows what else has gone on in that theater before it was even a UCB space.
It was a XXX movie theater before.
Yeah, I mean, that
how
has
much
had
jizz
gallons.
is soaked into the rug.
Yeah, just like old dry wax on the floor dripping down. Yeah, because it was sloped too. It's so funny you bring up burlesque because I rarely think about burlesque, but I did a show last night for Chemistry NYC. I don't know. They put on like sex parties and stuff. I'd never gone to any of their events, but they put on a comedy show last night, and it was comics and burlesque, and the host, the MC, was a burlesque performer. And
who was it?
I don't want to say her name because I'm about to shit on her.
Okay, shit on her.
No, I'm not going to shit on her. She was actually very funny, beautiful, like great. She was an amazing entertainer. But the people didn't understand that, like, they had a run of show printed out, and they had it set out to be 1 hour exactly, like starting at 8 p.m. sharp and ending at 9 p.m. sharp. And the third comic on the lineup was running late, so they're like, we're going to hold for 5 minutes until he gets here. And I'm like, most comics just come right before their set. Like, don't worry, you know? And then the MC, on the document, it said like, so-and-so ends, quick transition. She then introduces so-and-so. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, this isn't accounting for any in-between time. She ends up doing like 10 minutes between every act.
Oh my God.
So, and then I was one of 4 comics. I went last. After my set, she went up and did another 10 minutes. And it was like, you know that thing with stand-up, at least, it's like, as the host, nobody should say anything else after the final act. Right. It's literally like, thanks for being here. Have a great night. A couple announcements maybe, but definitely no jokes or material. So it just got so weird. Like the show went so long. It went like 20 or 30 minutes over, or like 30 or 40 minutes over. And I was just reminded like, oh yeah, like with stand up, especially when you're running your own show, you can really control the momentum of the night and like book people to do the right material that fits the theme of the night. And it was kind of interesting people watching to see this group who thought they knew how to put on a stand-up show kind of make a couple of wrong decisions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you really have to learn the culture of each discipline.
Yeah.
If you're going to mix disciplines, and you also have to learn that like it's not they don't add complexity, they exponentially multiply complexity. So, I ended up, and yeah, when you said alternative burlesque performers, I put on the burlesque that I like to see.
Yeah.
And so, yes, who doesn't like pretty girls getting naked?
Yeah.
That's never going out of style. But I also like seeing stuff that is really funny or weird or surprising. I had one guy, this guy Brief Sweat, do a striptease as the Elephant Man. And he did another one as Darth Vader, where he strips all the way down. He's wearing just like a leather like thing like this, and a Vader mask and a G-string, and then there's a little mini Death Star on his cock and balls, and he pulls a little string, and it's like a party favor. It goes pop and shoots streamers at the first row.
That's incredible.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like yes, the turned on bit, who doesn't like it? But I just want to see, I want people to see something weird and fun. Yeah. Where they go home and you're like, you're not going to believe this.
Yeah, yeah.
And I started that whole show because I had started doing storytelling at the Moth.
Yeah.
And I knew I wanted to get into stand-up and merge the two, because I think that storytelling is a genre of stand-up. It's a style of stand-up.
Yeah.
And not everybody saw it that way. And I was like, okay, I need to get funny. I need the stage time. I might not be good, but stick around. There's gonna be tits.
Yeah.
Like
that's actually,
it doesn't cost but $5, you guys. And there's going to be 2 naked people.
Yeah.
Usually naked ladies.
Yeah.
But like my friend Femme Appeal, who is actually one of my favorite comedians who happens to work within the burlesque discipline, is so funny and weird. And every time she gets on stage, I just end up screaming with laughter.
Yeah, yeah.
And, so I had her on all the time, but it got to where a lot of there was a whole lot of social media bullying that was going on in the burlesque scene towards the last 2 years of my show. And
we're talking, what, 2016, 17, 18, something like that?
Yeah, I think it stopped. I think my show stopped in 2018. Yeah.
What was it? What was it called?
And I Am Not Lying.
Yes.
Which is just when I was growing up, when somebody was saying something they were probably a little bit lying about, but it was awesome to be like, and I am not lying.
Yeah.
They found her purse down the street on the toilet stool in the McDonald's bathroom, and I am not lying.
Yeah. That reminds me, I'm finishing a documentary about a comedian, Tom Dustin in Florida, who's everybody loves. He's like a comics comic. And I'm really proud. At the end of the credits, we put together a little montage of him just saying, it's true. That's 100% true, and that's that's one of his refrains constantly. I love that, and I'm not lying.
Well, so you got to be able to. So if I'm going to have bigger talent who don't need my show but are a little bit doing me a favor or just want a workout set, if I'm going to have bigger comics on, they need to be able to say and do whatever that may not be fully baked. And I need to be able to trust that the burlesque talent is not going to decide to be offended about something and put it on social media and try to cancel them from the green room.
Are we alluding to something that happened?
Oh yeah, a buddy of mine who we both know did a show where there was strippers or burlesque and comedy, and told a joke that was maybe on the line, maybe not, but it was at his if you were not really paying attention, it was at his wife's expense.
Yeah.
But the real joke was he looks like an idiot.
Yeah.
And also he worked it out with his wife ahead of time.
Right.
And maybe the joke wasn't fully baked. Whatever. He told it. And one of the performers came up to him afterwards and said, "Hey, I don't like that. I feel like that joke promotes rape culture." And he goes, "Interesting. That's certainly not anything I would ever want to do, nor do I think I'm doing it with that joke. I will, I'm not going to promise you I won't do that joke again, but thanks for your input.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll change it further down the line. Agree to disagree. Enjoyed your set."
Yeah.
2 people had a healthy discussion, went their separate ways. The performer got up on social media, because the thing is, if you're motivated to take your clothes off on stage, you do like attention.
Yes.
So, I mean, the irony of a comedian saying that about somebody, but
Oh, that's tough. That's a tough position to be the producer of that show and then to navigate that, because there's no HR in nightlife, unfortunately.
No. Well, also there's a real generational thing where like kind of like lower Gen X and above got into burlesque because they wanted to run away and join the circus.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You get down into your younger millennials, your Gen Zs or whatever. I mean, I am grossly overgeneralizing here, but then all of a sudden your act is some like statement about social justice and like the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, no, you're gonna like, you know, nobody like you can't. If you're gonna cook in a kitchen, you're gonna get a couple burns.
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah,
mean. Somebody's
yeah.
gonna slap your, you know, or like some offensive stuff is gonna happen.
Yeah.
and you need to not act like it's the end of the world every time.
Totally.
Anyway, so like this had been going on, and so it got tighter and tighter, the circle of people that I would book, and they had to sort of come through some vetted references. My friends Brad and Cindy, I started this show with, and they kind of went on to do a really great burlesque only show at the Slipper Room. And anybody, like if they'd worked with Brad and Cindy and they gave them the go ahead, then I would book them. But I kind of knew who to ask, like, is this person going to be cool? And it was a ton of fun, and I miss it because I miss curating that stuff and making the posters and having a wild night. It was at midnight in the East Village on a Friday, and so
super fun show.
Yeah, unfortunately, COVID has killed all of that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But that's an example. If you decide to do it again, like that is a thing that will be manageable when your kid's a little bit older. Like you'll be able to have that on your schedule, and you can like put the same amount of love into curating a lineup that you're excited about. But yeah, for now, while you have a 2-year-old, it just might be another year or two.
Yeah, which is hard because it feels like so long, but at the same time, I'm like, sometimes I've been recently in rooms where I'm like, why am I trying to get these 25 idiots to like me when there are 2 people in my apartment that love me?
Yeah, I've been kind of meditating about that a little bit. Like I have for so long had this secret desire that is obviously not so secret based on my chosen career here to like want to be known. I want to be famous. I want people to like, I want acclaim, you know? And I'm ashamed to say that out loud. And I want to give the disclaimer that that's like my base caveman desire. Like that's, you know, of course, whatever. But I think it is true. At home, I'm like famous to my daughter. Like she thinks I'm really cool. Like she thinks I'm as cool as I would like for strangers to think I am. And if I want that to be how she feels about me forever, I gotta like stick around.
Yeah, until she's like 16 and she hates you.
Yeah.
Hey, I happen to see you're running a timer here, which I think is wise.
Yeah.
You had some end of life care questions for me, and I want to address them.
I guess I just want to know, like, has any of this stuff, what you went through with your dad, did it ever feel totally overwhelming?
Yes.
Or did it ever feel like I can't do this? Like, what kind of grit did it require to just be there for because like I always think about it in terms of, man, one day my parents are going to die. I never think of one day my parents might start getting sick slowly and I might have to help out and be there for them. So like, I don't know, I guess like what were some surprises along the way, or I don't want to throw too many questions out there, but.
Well, I mean, the whole thing was a surprise. Like, I mean, ALS specifically is just one ugly surprise that you also knew was coming after another. Because the human mind cannot comprehend what it's like to take care of somebody who's just collapsing in slow motion like that until you do it. And I mean, and as you're an empathetic, caring guy, you feel things, you're considerate, like whatever, imaginative, you have no idea because until it happens, you can't get your mind around it. You protect yourself from it somehow. Denial is the reason it still exists is it is an effective coping mechanism.
Right.
So there, when you say what kind of grit does it take, it's like, one of the things I heard, I heard some like Navy SEALs talking about how they made it through basic, through what's called BUDS, the basic training to become a SEAL. And they said, well, you can't think about it as a whole week. You can't think about it as hell week. You think about it like, what's the next challenge?
Yeah.
Can I make it to lunch? Okay. Can I make it to dinner? Can I make it to breakfast?
Yeah.
Can I make it, and you just got to go like 1 inch at a time or one challenge at a time, because especially with something like a neurodegenerative disease that is definitely going to take your loved one from you, and they're being taken from you in little bites every day.
Yeah.
You can't look at the big picture because you don't know what it is. Nobody knows what it is. It's just like, dad needs to eat. He's choking. Let me get the sucker. He's got to go to the bathroom. Let me get him to the bathroom. Oh, he appears to feel like not so bad right now. Let me see if he wants to hang out.
Right.
And so it's really hour by hour, minute by minute, or, we were there to kind of take some burden off of my mom. And so it would be like, mom needs a nap, so I'm on call for the next 3 hours.
Yeah.
And okay, now I need a freaking break. So, but everything is closed, and I was extra scared of getting COVID and bringing it back to my dad because ALS attacks the lungs.
Right.
So I was like, all right, Erica and I are just going to go for a drive, or we're going to have a weird date night where like we go to the old school burger joint that still has curb service. We're going to eat burgers in the car.
Yeah.
And as long as we're home by 6:30 and we don't get more than a 15-minute radius from the house in case my mom needs me to jet home.
Yeah.
We'll do that. So we would just drive up and down the streets at like 5 miles an hour in my neighborhood just to not be home. And
like I don't want to spoil too many of the themes of the show, but
it's okay.
this one idea comes up of like, I was hoping I was going to get some pointers about parenthood from my dad before he departs. Do you think that just showing up, an hour at a time or an afternoon at a time for him, or days and months and weeks at a time, the lessons about parenting, because actually thinking of you with a sucker, whatever that device is, it reminds me of a device we had when our child was an infant. I don't know if you guys have a nose Frida.
Oh yeah, we got a nose.
The nose Frida is like a straw where you like literally suck mucus out of their nose with the power of your own air. And I was trying to write a bit about this. What if you did that to yourself? Could you just like suck yourself into like another plane of existence?
Yeah,
like,
you could turn yourself inside out. Yeah.
Yes, a vortex of some kind. But having to do that for your dad before your child came along is a lesson in not just how to physically do that, like somewhat repulsive thing you have to do to help someone, but it's a lesson in child rearing is just about being a helper and being somebody who is like available to someone when they need you. So I don't know, were there like lessons that he just taught just through this experience that were unexpected in any way?
You raised that, and I think it's really given me a lot to think about. When I say the sucker, like, that thing you have at the dentist that like you put in your mouth while the dentist is working. So ALS patients can't hawk their own phlegm, but they generate like a ton of it. Right. So this was like a dust buster for phlegm that we would put in his mouth, and it's so revolting. But you just got to do it. And so there was a lot of like, this is just what's happening right now. Like here, the line from Slaughterhouse-Five occurs to me. Here we are trapped in the amber of this moment. There is no why. It just is.
Yeah.
Like my dad is shitting on my feet right now, which happened. And, there's how I feel about it, but he doesn't feel great about it either. Really no need to discuss this, and like, so maybe with my son, maybe I'm patient because it's like, so many things that I have to do with him that are unpleasant or distasteful, or like the thing about the nose Frida is, it's gross, but I'd do it with my own lips if it didn't sound like I was fucking waterboarding him every time I was doing it.
Yeah.
But like it's just horrific. But this has to happen now.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, I sure wish he didn't do this or could do that, but he just can't.
Yeah.
You know, and my dad, I wanted to be able to get out in the wood shop with him and work. He was a passionate amateur woodworker, and we made tons of stuff in the shop together. And yeah, I wanted to get out in the shop with him one more time, but he just couldn't do it.
Right.
Or there was a lot of times I wanted to talk to him and have him be present conversationally. And it was very hard for me to understand that he just couldn't right now.
Yeah.
He just needed to sit in the dark and not do or say anything. And I would literally be like, clock's ticking, dude.
Yeah.
We could be having an important conversation right now and you're just choosing to not. Okay.
Yeah.
You know?
That's so hard even now with a functioning dad. I mean, my dad's fine. He's a pretty heavy drinker and smoker, but so there are times when I'm sitting around him and I'm thinking that the exact same thought, honestly, dude, when are you going to open up? Because the clock's ticking.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a frustrating feeling when there's the physicality is just totally broken down. But then you tell one beautiful compliment that he pays you and your sister in your show that I won't spoil here, but I assume those moments of clarity and those moments of meaning that are brief are so meaningful to you now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the whole thing was a big lesson in trying not to be quite so results oriented. People are going to show up the way that they show up, and you're going to get what you get, but you can't look for it or mine for it. And I wanted a lot of fatherly insight or connection or whatever, and it wasn't going to show up on my time frame. And it never does. It never did, even when he was healthy. It's just that we could choose to talk on the phone or be more physically present. I mean, he got to where breathing was so tiring literally the act of talking was so exhausting for him. We stopped being able to talk on the phone.
Yeah.
And so part of me wanted to treat my dad like some kind of slot machine or pinata, where I think I just wanted to absorb so much of the wonderfulness of him so that I could pack up and be ready to be a dad. And it doesn't work that way. You get what you get, and then you get to make sense out of it. And if you're an insightful person, then you can do that, I guess, but, I
mean, it sounds like you have worked through a lot of this.
I guess so. Yeah.
How did it turn out timeline wise? Did he pass away, and then how long till your son came along?
Oh, my dad passed away in June of
21,
and they implanted the embryo that became baby Fred in December of 21.
Okay, so you had time to you had enough time. I don't know what grieving.
Time. Yeah. No, I did not. Honestly, if it wasn't that we were for fuck the math, 46, and I don't want to put my wife's business out there, but over 40, this would not have been the year.
Right.
It was a lot of packing the parachute on the way out of the plane.
Right.
And I had, honestly, I mean, because I've only lost one parent that I'm aware of. My phone's been on airplane mode this whole time. But
I mean, how close are we in that department? Is she doing okay? Your mom?
My mom is doing as okay and as good as a woman who has been widowed late in life from the love of her absolute life and is in her mid 70s is going to be doing.
Yeah.
She needs a double knee replacement now because maybe genetically she would have needed it anyway, but I can tell you that deadlifting my father, who's my size, out of a chair
just fucked up her knees
5 to 8 times a day, it didn't help.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's something, the visceral takeaway I took from your show was just the amount of physical labor involved in caring for somebody who is collapsing, to use the word you used. And to imagine the days y'all weren't there and your mom was doing that alone is just so heartbreaking.
And then you also have to enter this, like, you enter this sort of gray world of, like, when you're paying out of pocket for in-home care because the medical system is totally screwing you, or what they're providing isn't adequate because what you need is so much. I mean, we could have used 24-hour care, but we don't. First of all, we don't have that kind of money.
Yeah.
Secondly, because of COVID, an awful lot of home health aides either died or quit or would refuse to wear masks or get vaccines, or like for whatever reason, you know, those people were that population was very hard hit by COVID.
Yeah.
And then, and then the people that do that sort of work are either these complete angels who for whatever reason are doing the most emotionally difficult, physically taxing, disgusting job. There's a lot of fluid and parts and
smells.
Yeah, and people are not at their best, so they're going to snap at you even if they're a nice person, you know?
I think Angels is right. Like, I truly believe there are like, we are all born like with whatever personality traits, and like some people are just born with the superhuman power to just want to be there for other people,
or you just don't have a lot of options. And you're from a path in life where your options are pretty narrow. And then, or you're a lunatic and this is literally the only job you can get.
I mean, isn't it nice though, like when you know you're good at something and like you can tell that people appreciate you being good at something. I think there are like frontline nurse level workers who are like, I'm fucking good at this and I like it. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and look, my grandmother died at 102, and the woman that cared for her as her like attendant for years, actually, she was in a nursing home, but we had to bring in our own help to watch her. That woman like started caring for my grandmother and older people because she aged out of working at a slaughterhouse.
Wow.
So that's
the same business, right?
I mean, you're picking up slabs of meat all day,
you're keeping beings out of their misery in some way.
Yeah, but so the woman that cared for my dad was really gentle and sweet and kind and really took to him very well. She had 3 different phone numbers during the time that we worked with her, and she had this sketchy boyfriend whose car would idle outside our house for no reason while she was working. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like these are people that are living very close to the edge of something. Yeah, and this is a job that they can get. Oh, you know what it was? She had worked on the cleaning crew at the local university, like the janitorial staff, but then COVID came and they shut the university down, so she was suddenly out of a job. Yeah. And so she was doing this and had a kind of a close to the bone life. Yeah. And so she was not medically like anything, but she was just caring and gentle and sweet, which my dad needed. And there are other people who go into that field who like literally try to fall down at your house so they can sue you. Right. So it's just a whole mess to navigate. Yeah. And you go, so it's a word of mouth thing. She came to us through somebody else we knew at church, and it was just a whole deal. Wow. Yeah.
Well, it's an amazing story, and it's a beautiful story, and I'm sorry if I made light of any elements of it too much, but I really...
you've strained our friendship, and it's over after this podcast, but we'll hold it together for now.
Yeah.
But that's really fine.
So I was watching a clip of yours the other night, and the joke you put up was about being an aging white comic, which I am as well. And I think I have this fear of irrelevance. Like what does the entertainment market like want to hear from me about, you know? And you telling this story in a funny, entertaining way that sheds light on the medical industrial complex for people at the end of life is really interesting and totally relevant. And, you know, it makes me think of that show, Swedish Death Cleaning. Do you know about this?
I didn't know it was a show.
I think it's on Hulu. You're familiar with it?
I'm familiar with the concept.
Yeah, and like, I think there are other countries where people really honor their elders and their parents in a much different way than we do here. This country, is obsessed with youth and celebrity and young people, all that stuff. And like, I don't know. I'm so proud of you for doing this show because I think it's important, and I am now going to be entering a phase where I have to look out for my parents a little bit more than I do now. I'm pretty avoidant in my relationship with my parents, and I love them, but I can go months without talking to them, and it's like that's probably going to change. I don't know if it'll be this year or next year or even 5 years from now, but it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So it helps me like be a grown-up to see how other grown-ups grown up.
Wow.
As a verb.
That's nice to hear. Thanks for at least not saying adulting.
I hate it. I hate it.
Well, you know, the one thing that there's a through line here that I'm going to pull out, which is, you know, when you ask like, what kind of grit does it take to take care of your dad? Or, you know, the grit that it takes to take care of a toddler, or you said you're proud of me for doing the show, which felt very nice to hear. I really... that means a lot to hear. As Patrick is one of my first storytelling students ever, you know, I gotta say, man, it's like, you get this credit for like, you're giving me this credit for having this grit or this integrity or being brave enough to do whatever. But it's like, no, I just don't have another option.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like whether it's character or not, or whatever, it's just like, no, I just wanted to be at home helping my mom and dad as much as I could. It's just what I wanted to do. It was horrific. And I cried so hard that I like couldn't see behind the wheel of a car, probably 3 days a week, you know, things. I would have these colossal panic attacks and meltdowns. And then you stop crying and you feel this weird, tingly, like almost jizzed feeling. And then you're like, well, somebody's got to feed him, you know, and then you just go in and do it. And as far as like the solo show, it's just like, I just talk about my life on stage, and it's just what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this. And like, I remember early in comedy, people were like, oh, you're just a storyteller, or you're more of a storyteller. You can't do this show or that show. Oh, by the way, have you heard Bill Burr's latest hour? He's a great storyteller. Mike Birbiglia. And it's just like, yes, that's what I'm fucking, you know, And those bookers or club owners or whatever who's like, oh, you do more of this, or fuck that, man. And that's what I feel like really powered me from the DIY music scene or the, you know, punk scene, which is so much more than just like some guy with fucking Liberty spikes. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's very just like, these are the tools I have. I'm going to do this, and I'm just going to use whatever is around me to do it. And even if anybody says no, I'm going to keep doing it. And if I'm like you know, I would love to be on Colbert or opening for, you know, this guy or that guy or Tig Notaro on the road or something, but I've kind of made my peace with the fact that may never happen.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to keep doing this, and maybe I'll amass an audience like Canaan style, and maybe I won't, but I'm just going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And so all of this shit is just like, you just keep doing it because somebody's got to do it, and you can't not do it.
Yeah.
Did you know the Beavers, by the way, this is going to relate. They build their dams. Like if they hear running water, their brains are like wired to just like build a dam.
I must build.
Yeah.
That trickle means get my hammer and nails out.
Yeah. So like my friend used to work at this zoo in Richmond, and she was bringing home, like they were rehabilitating a beaver, and it had to have like round the clock like care. So she had to bring it home sometimes.
Yeah.
And she would get out of the shower and see it like in her bedroom with like her panties in its mouth. It'd be like, and it's like got all of her shoes lined up.
Like,
you know,
where's your sticks? I'll use anything.
I just got to do this. This is wrong, but And it would just look like maybe like in a daze that she cut the shower off and be like, wait, I can stop now?
That's
and so
amazing.
That's just kind of me with this stuff. It's for everything,
You're built to do it. You're wired to do it. And you have a track record of doing it. Please do search out Jeff Simmermon, find a couple albums out there, right?
He was about to crunch ice in the microphone. Yeah, 2 albums. Yeah,
2 albums. I went to your album recording, which is a special that is out there in the world, right?
I just have like carved up a bunch of clips, but
clip
close
it up.
enough. Yeah,
great albums. Some legendary stories on The Moth you can find, and on NPR. If you just Google Jeff Simmermon, he also puts on amazing storytelling classes. 2 of my best stories came from your class.
Oh, really?
I still if I'm headlining, I still do these stories in the show. I use a lot of your concepts for other stories I've done. So you're just an amazing guy, an amazing storyteller and comedian. And I appreciate you telling this version of your story in podcast form today. So
well, thanks, man.
Thanks for being
here. It means
here.
a lot to me.
You're the man.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah. We'll do it again sometime. And there's going to be things I'm like, fuck, I forgot to ask him about this.
Yeah, I'll do. I'll follow up.
But yeah, I think people like to hear how a person in the arts has a family and just deal. I don't know. I'm also like really compelled by the corny parts of your story, which is like one life is ending, another life is beginning, and I know it's like such a lame kind of take on it.
No, look, man. If you buy another ticket, it's not that lame.
Yeah. Well, thanks again.
Thanks a lot, man. Wait, a little side call for the camera. It really means a lot to me.
Gastor never hugs me. Wow, that was beautiful. I got a side cuddle from Jeff Simmermon. Mm-hmm. Thanks for watching.
He's
everybody.
Emotionally damaged.
Yeah. He actually. Yeah, we can call him out on a couple things. Jeff is also very close with Gastor. Never has spent a day in therapy. Never ever attended therapy.
I'm not going to address that.
No, Gastor's amazing. He has a lot of support, and I would argue he has gone to therapy. He just doesn't know it. He just has caring family members who don't charge him a copay.
Yeah. Well, he has the benefit of not having left the city of his birth. Yeah. Being surrounded by loving and functional family. Yeah. So he has family. He didn't have to forego his family ties to go be who he really was.
Yeah,
and consequently may not need the therapy.
It's a big it's a big resentment of mine. Yeah. The access to childcare he has just with his army of aunts and uncles. So that's a chip on my shoulder I have. So if Gastor, you watch or listen to this podcast when you're not on it, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care.
Bye.